Hi friend, welcome to the live study channel. Today I am going to discuss Kubernetes interview question and answer, fresher and experience both. So let's start. What is Kubernetes? Basically, Kubernetes is the open source container management tools that hold the responsibility of container development, scaling, and descaling of container, and load balancing. Being a Google brainchild, it offers excellent community and work brilliantly with the cloud provider. Okay. So we can say that Kubernetes is not a containerization platform, but it is a multi-container management solution. But the Kubernetes is a distributed open source technology that helps us in scheduling and executing application container within a cross cluster. Okay, in a cluster, like there are different type nodes, master and node processor. Okay, processor consists two types. Is a master and nodes. So the master coordinate all activity in the cluster, coordinate to all activity in the cluster. For example, scheduling application, maintaining application, state scaling application, and roll out new update. But in a nodes is an instance of OS, means operating system, that serves as a worker machine in a Kubernetes cluster. Also, node will have two components. Means nodes, there are two components. Means kubelet. Okay. So the kubelet agent for managing and communicating with the master. Another one is a tools. Tools means Docker container. Tools for running, containing, operating means it designed based on ground up as a loosely coupled collection of containers center around deploying, management, and scheduling workload, work as engine for resolving state by converging actual and the desired state of the system, self-healing, hiding from the underlying hardware of the nodes, and provide a uniform interface for workload to be both deployed and consuming the shared pool of resources hardware in order to simplify development. A pod are the smallest unit of object that can be deployed on a Kubernetes. Kubernetes package one or more container into a higher level structure called a pod. Pod means POD, pod. Pod run on one level higher to the container. So in another point is, a pod always run on a node, but they share a few resources which can be shared: volume, cluster, unique IP, information about how to run each container. All containers in a pod are going to be scheduled on an equivalent node, but in a service are the unified way of accessing the workload on the pod control plan, which is the core of Kubernetes, is an API server that lets you query manipulation the state of the object in a Kubernetes. So the whole process is called Kubernetes. Got it? Move to the another question. Another question is, what is role of load balancing? Okay, very interesting question. Okay, So load balancing basically a way to distribute the incoming traffic. Load balancing is a popular word. It's a main in a cloud platform is a EC2 means is a Amazon AWS. In a load balancing means incoming traffic distribute into the multiple backend server, right? Means which is useful to ensure the application available to the user. But in a Kubernetes, as shown in the above figure, that all incoming traffic land to a single IP address on the load balancer, which is way to expose your service to outside the internet, which route the incoming traffic to a particular port due to the service using a, you can call algorithm or know about, is the best example of round robin in operating system. Remember it, round robin algorithm you are using. Okay, even if any port go down, load balance are notified so that the traffic is not routed to that particular unavailable nodes. The load balancer is Kubernetes are responsible for distributing a set of tasks. Set of tasks means incoming traffic to the pod. Means load balancer connect to the which in a service. Service connect to the pod. There are multiple traffic, incoming traffic distribute to the multiple services. Okay, multiple services distribute to the multiple pod. Right? Okay. Got it? And now new question is how does Kubernetes simplify containerized deployment? Means is a containerized deployment means as simple as a typical application would have a cluster container running across the multiple hosts. All these containers would need to talk to each other. So to do this, you need to someone big that will be load balance, scalar, monitor the container. Kubernetes is cloud agnostic and can run on any public or private, provided it must be your choice. Simplify containerized deployment. Means Kubernetes is a simplify the containerization. Means Kubernetes just contain means Kubernetes hold the package, means hold the files in a. It's a very is a popular containerized. It's not used in Amazon service AWS in a EC2 container. Just as containerized EC2. Got it? Another question is how to run Kubernetes locally. Means locally you can if you want to run Kubernetes in locally. So basically the Kubernetes can be set up locally with the it's just tool. It is tool called Minikube tool. It run a single node bunch in a VM, means virtual machine on the computer. Therefore, it offers the perfect way for user who have just ongoing learning Kubernetes nodes. Right. Another question is, what is Kubernetes load balancing? So basically, load balancing is one of the most common and standard way of the exposing the services. Got it? There are two types. First, internal. Second, external. So internal means automatically balance the load and allocate the pod with the required incoming pod. Means I have already discussed in previous question. Means load balancing means internal means load means automatically load balance means balance load and locate the pod with the required incoming. Means if you Suppose there are multiple incoming traffic are force in one services. Okay, so internal load balancer is just divide to the another services and then connect to the another pod called load balancing. Sorry, internal load balancer. So external load balancer means this direct traffic from the external load to backend pod. Okay, backend pod. Got it? Another question is, what do you understand by kube proxy? Interesting question and very important question. So the kube proxy can on each and every node and can do simple TCP, UDP. TCP means transfer control protocol, transmission, not a transfer, transmission control protocol, and UDP package forwarding across backend network service. So basically it is a network proxy that reflects the service as configured in Kubernetes API on each nodes. So the Docker linkable compatible environment variable provide the cluster IP and port which are opened by proxy. Another question is, can you brief on working of the master node in Kubernetes? Definitely, there are multiple means image registry, Kubernetes master, API services, controllers, scheduler, etc. So many nodes are using, and so many nodes 1, 2, 3, 4, just like this. Command line user means UI means user interface. Okay, so the basically Kubernetes master controls the node, and inside the nodes the container are present. Now these individual container are contained inside pod and inside each pod. You can have a various number of containers based upon configuration and requirement. So if the pod have to deploy, then you can either be deploy using user interface or command line API. Okay, command line interface. Then the pod are scheduled on nodes, and based on resource requirements, the pod are allocated to these nodes. The kube API server means the kube API server. The kube API server, okay. API server make sure this communication established between the Kubernetes nodes, master and components, master and then component. Okay, then also Kubernetes scheduling like a API server connect to the controller and scheduling repository, right? Another question is, what is the role of Kubernetes API server and kube scheduler? Okay, the kube API server follows the scale out architecture, and it is the front end of the master node control panel. This exposes all the API of the Kubernetes master node component, and it is responsible for established communication between Kubernetes node and the Kubernetes master component. The kube scheduler is responsible for the distribution and management of workload on the worker nodes. So it selects the most suitable node to run the unscheduled pod based on resource requirement and keep a track of resource utilization. It is make sure that the workload is not scheduled on nodes that are already full. Another question is, what is Ingress network and how does it work? Ingress network is a collection of rules that act as an entry point to the Kubernetes cluster. This allows inbound connection which can be configured to give service externally through the reachable URL, load balance traffic, or by offering main-based mutual hosting. So Ingress is an API object that manages external across to the service in a cluster, usually by HTTP, and it is most powerful way of exposing service. Now let me explain how do you have working of Ingress network with the example. Means there are two nodes. For example, there are two nodes having the pod and root network. The name is space with a Linux bridge. In addition to this, there is also a new virtual Ethernet device called P-plane network plugging add to the root network. Right. Another question is, what is the difference between replica set and replication controller? So replica set and replication controller to almost the same thing. Both of them ensure that a specified number of pod replicas are running at any given time. The difference comes with the use of selector to replicate pod. Replica set use set based selector, which replication controller use equity based selector. So there are two types: equity based selectors and electrical based selectors. So first point is equity based selector, means this type of selector allow filtering by base key and value. So in layman terms, the equity based selector will only look for the pod which will have the exact same phase as that of the labels. For example, suppose your label key say app is equal to Ingress. Ingress means it's a proxy, is a server name. N spelled is NGINX. Okay. Then with the selector you can only look for those pods with label app equal to Ingress. Okay. Another point is second one is selector based, not a selector, just is a selector, not a electors, not a selector, elector. Okay, is a electors means this type of selector allow filtering key according to the set of value. So in other words, the selector based selector will look for pod which label has been maintained in the set. For example, your label key say app in Ingress, NPS, Apache. Then with the selector, if your app is equal to the any of Ingress server, NPS or Apache, then the selector will take it as a true result. Another question this question is a scenario based question. Okay, so it's a very most important question. Please listen carefully. So suppose a company built on monolithic architecture handle numerous products. Now as the company expand in today a scaling industry, their monolithic architecture start facing problems. So how do you think the company shift from monolithic to microservice and deploy these service containers? Got it my question? Means how do you think the company shift from monolithic to microservices and deploy their service containers? Simple. As the company goal is to shift from their monolithic application to the microservice. They can end up building pieces by pieces in a parallel and just switch configuration in the backend. Then they can put each of these builds in microservices on the use Kubernetes, means container Kubernetes platform. So they can start by migrating their service once or twice. monitor them to make sure everything is running stable. Okay, and once they feel everything is going good, then they can migrate the rest of application into their Kubernetes cluster, means container. Actually, it's a Kubernetes is just a container. Very most important question. Okay, don't forget. Another scenario-based question. Scenario-based question means consider a multinational company with a very much distributed system with a large number of data center, virtual machine, and many employees working on various tasks. So the question is, how do you think can such a company manage all the tasks in a consistent way with Kubernetes? Okay, means how to manage all the tasks in a consistent way with the Kubernetes. Means, so as all of the know that IT department launch thousands of containers with tasks running across the numerous number of nodes across the world in a distributed system. In such a situation, the company can use something that offer then agility, scale out capability, and develop practice to the cloud-based application. So the company can therefore use Kubernetes to customize their scheduling architecture and support multiple container formats. This makes it possible for affirmative affinity between container tasks that give greater efficiency with an extensive support for various container networking solution and container storage. Another scenario-based question. Consider a situation where a company wants to increase its efficiency and the speed of the technical operation by maintaining minimal cost. So question is, how do you think the company will try to achieve this? Means how to achieve. The company can implement the developed methodology by building a CI and CD pipeline, but one problem that may occur this is the configuration may take a time to go up and running. So after implementing the CI CD pipeline, the company next step should be to work in the cloud environment. Once they start working on the cloud environment, they can schedule container on a cluster and can orchestrate with the help of Kubernetes. This kind of approach will help the company reduce their deployment time and also get fast across the various environments. Another scenario was question means, suppose a company want to revise its deployment method and want to build a platform which is much more scalable and responsible. So question is, how do you think this company can achieve this, certify their customers? In order to give a million of clients the digital experience, they would expect the company need a platform that is scalable and responsibility so that they could quickly get data to the client website. Now, to do this is companies should move from their private data center if they are using any cloud environment such as AWS, Google Cloud. Not only this, but they should also implement the microservices architecture so that they can start using Docker container. Once they have the basic framework ready, then they can start using the best orchestration platform available, either Kubernetes. This would enable the team to be autonomous in building application and delivering them very quickly. Another question is, consider a multinational company with a very much distributed system looking forward to solve the monolithic code base problem. Means how do you think the company can solve their problem? Means, well, to solve the problem, they can shift from monolithic code base to microservice design, and they each and every microservice can consider as a container. So all the container can be deployed and orchestrated with the help of Kubernetes. Another question is scenario based. scenario is all of us then that the shift from monolithic to microservice solve the problem from the deployment side, but increase the problem at the deployment side. Means how can companies solve the problem on the deployment side? The team can experiment with the container or orchestration platform such as Kubernetes and run in its data center. So with this, the company can generate a template application and deploy it within the 5 minutes and have actual instance containerized in the staging environment at the endpoint. Sorry, not endpoint, at that point. This kind of Kubernetes project will have the dozens of microservices running in a parallel to improve the production rate, as even if a node going down, can be rescheduling immediately without the performance impact. Another scenario this question is, suppose containerization application. Suppose organization want to optimize distribution of its workload by adopting new technology. The question is, how can the company achieve this distribution of resource efficiently? The solution to this problem is more than Kubernetes. Kubernetes makes sure that the resources are optimized efficiently and only those resources are used which are needed by that all particular applications. So with the usage of the REST container orchestration tools, the company can achieve the distribution of resource efficiently. Another question, consider a carpooling organization want to increase their number of servers by simultaneously scaling this platform. The question is, how do you think will the company deal with the server and the installation? The organization can adopt the concept of containerization. Once they deploy all their application into containers, they can use Kubernetes for orchestration and use container monitoring tools like Prometheus to monitor the action in containers. So with such usage of the container, giving them better capacity planning in data center, because they will now have fewer constraint due to this abstraction between the service and the hardware they can run it. Another scenario this question is, consider a scenario where an organization want to provide all the required handout to its customer having various environments. The question is, how do you think they can achieve this critical target in a dynamic manner? The organization can use Docker environment to put together a cross-selection team to build a web application using Kubernetes. This kind of framework will help the company achieve the goal of getting the requirement thing into production within the shortest time frame. So with such machine running, the company can give the handout to all the customer having various environments. Scenario is, suppose a company wants to run various workload on different cloud infrastructure from bare metal to a public cloud. So question is, how will the company achieve this in the presence of different interface? The company can decompose its infrastructure into microservices and then adopt Kubernetes. This will let the company can run various workload on different cloud infrastructure. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe this video. Thank you so much.